Ruby's Diner, Pacific Coast Highway 1. Time for a breakfast stop on our way to Long Beach to drop the bikes off. The following day we set off for Carlsbad, a couple of hours ride southwest on the coast. The weather was pretty grey and cold, but most importantly it was incredibly windy. Mind you, the clue should have been the huge wind farm located just outside Palm Springs and Desert Hot Springs. It was horrendous. We had to ride for several miles leaning into the wind just to retain some kind of stability on the bike. So we were pretty thankful when we got through the end of the wind tunnel, but disappointed when we found out that we had some malfunctioning GoPros, so we couldn't record it. Still, you live and learn. Not that we're creatures of habit or anything, but by now it was time for our mid-morning coffee shop. But there seemed to be very few places to stop along this road, and then I suddenly spotted some kind of retail park, and I felt sure they would have a coffee stop, and sure enough there was a Starbucks sign, and because there was nothing else available we decided we'd pull in and have a flat white and a muffin. The thing about Starbucks is you know exactly what to expect. Wherever you are in the world, you know you can get a decent muffin, and now quite a decent flat white. A good coffee and muffin later, and with threatening skies looking like rain was inevitable, we were back on the road and heading towards Carlsbad. Carlsbad is known as an affluent seaside resort city. occupies about 7-mile stretch of the Pacific coastline in California. It's referred to as the village by the sea by the locals. It was actually named after a famous spa, Carlsbad, spelled with a K, in Bohemia, when in 1882 the water in Carlsbad, California was found to have similar mineral content. It's also known for its year-round mild climate, although I must admit our time in Carlsbad wasn't marked by balmy breezes. It was more like blowing a gale and quite chilly most of the time. So this is Carlsbad, folks, and this is the Best Western, actually the Best Western Ocean View Lodge to be precise. Having arrived on a very blustery, grey, overcast afternoon, it was now time to check into our hotel and check out the kind of room and go exploring. It's a nice big room. We've got all our gear spread out as usual. Big king size bed. Bit dark, and the heater doesn't work very well. It's a bit cold.
I think you should show our viewers the sea view, darling.
Oh, that view. Yeah, we've got a sea view though, so you know you get what you pay for on that. Here's a sea view. If you look down there, right there, just over the swinging palm tree. Above that building, to the right of the building, in the middle there is the sea. There's the sea view. Happy days. Having checked in, we decided to take a walk down to the beach and see what was happening. And as you can see, it's not a lot happening at the moment. It's supposed to be a well-known surfing beach, but there's a distinct lack of surfers out there, and it didn't get any better all the time we were in Carlsbad, to be honest. I tried to convince Sue to go in for a swim, but I don't think she was that keen. Welcome to sunny Carlsbad on the beach. It's blowing a gale, but it's not raining. Final day in Carlsbad. We head off tomorrow back to Long Beach, take the bikes back. Not that cold. If you're ever in Carlsbad and you like good coffee, this is the place to go. Sleeping Tiger Coffee. Now you know the best coffee place in town, but if you're interested in craft beers and IPAs, then Barrel Republic is the place to be. We've been given some recommendation by somebody in Carlsbad. I asked for a place that sells craft beer and ended up in this place called Barrel Republic, where you can taste, they give you a wristband and you can have a taste of all the different ones they have, and wines as well, and they charge you by the ounce. So I think we figured out where we're going to come to drink tonight and eat. What do you think?
I think it looks brilliant. It's real fun.
So you get one of these armbands, whatever it is. You go to all these different pubs, you choose one, put your armband against it, and then just pour how much you want, and it charges you per the ounce of pouring, and you get all these different beers on tap. And you can get burgers as well. Apart from being a good night out, it's also a great business idea because you've no idea really how much you're spending and how much you're drinking. But still, who's counting? Ruby's Diner on Pacific Coast Highway 1. Time for a breakfast stop on our way to Long Beach to drop the bikes off.
Here we are, Laguna Beach at Ruby's Diner. Sunset. Good breakfast. Well on the way to Long Beach. Our final stop.
Suitably refreshed, it was back onto Pacific Coast Highway 1 and the next stop, Long Beach, our final destination. Our final day's riding took us up the Pacific Coast Highway 1 on a beautiful sunny day, the ocean to our left, and we rode through some lovely towns like Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach. It was busier traffic-wise than we were used to for the previous 2 weeks, but all in all, it was a great way to end our American adventure. Motor Quest, dropping the bikes off after our epic adventure. 1,200 miles we've done. And it's beautiful weather now. Having been through the horrible stuff, it's now perfect for riding. Well, that was the Blind Donkey. We just had a couple of beers here, very nice IPAs, and we're heading for a Thai restaurant. Hold on, where is it? It must be up here. So we're going for a Thai restaurant in Long Beach on our first night after dropping the bikes off. And here it is. Thai district. So let's check it out. I'm starving. There we are. Thai district restaurant. Perfect. Happy days. On our last day, we wandered down to the harbour in Long Beach, which was a lovely place. The weather was really nice, the sun was shining, and we wandered around, took a distant look at the Queen Mary, and planned again where we're going to have our last night's dinner. Parker's Lighthouse had been recommended to us for good seafood, so we booked a table to have our final celebration before heading home. So we're at Parker's Lighthouse for our last night ashore meal down by the marina in Long Beach. That's the Queen Mary over there, and we're just sitting out having pre-dinner drinks, ordered chips and dips.
So it's now 8 weeks since we got back from our wonderful round trip from Los Angeles, Las Vegas.
Doesn't time fly?
It really flies, and most of you will be aware, of having watched the videos, that we've now released 5 different videos about our trip, and looking at those has really helped us feel really nostalgic about it and think about what went really well, what could have gone better, and what we would recommend for anybody considering the trip to maybe change. And the first thing that springs to mind is that even though we'd done our research and looked at the temperatures over the last 5 or 6 years, which said really round about 17 to 20 degrees, when we got there, it was, as you say, the coldest February for about 85 years. And the low was -2 and the high probably not much more than 10 degrees. So I guess the first thing that springs to mind is maybe look at travelling around March or April time to do that trip just to be safe.
But also, don't trust the forecasts. So, why did we choose MotorQuest as a place to rent our bikes? Well, we thought about flying our bikes out initially, but the cost was prohibitive. And so I did some research on the internet. We wanted to get BMWs preferably. We didn't really fancy riding Harleys, and MotorQuest came up as the most obvious choice because they had specifically the bikes we wanted, which was the 1200 GS, because that's what I ride at home, and Sue's first bike was a 700 GS, and it fitted us perfectly. The cost of the high, and this, bear in mind, this was off peak, was about, was it £3,500?
About £3,500
give or take. Now the cost of flying our own bikes out there would be way more than that. So our recommendation is if you like the kind of bikes we ride and you fancy doing that kind of trip, MotorQuest are a good outfit. The only downside would be the bikes were, particularly mine, was slightly higher mileage than I would have liked. But in fairness, it ran like a dream. It didn't let us down, and they're well serviced. The only slight issue we had was Sue's pannier almost fell off because the screws had come undone. But that wasn't a major mechanical problem. So I can highly recommend MotorQuest. They did a great job for us, and nothing went wrong. So thumbs up for MotorQuest.
Certainly thumbs up for MotorQuest. We made the decision to fly into LAX for obvious reasons. LAX was about half an hour from Long Beach, which is where MotorQuest were based. We stayed at the Cove Hotel when we first arrived, which was about 7 minutes.
7 minutes
from
MotorQuest.
MotorQuest.
Google Maps, really convenient for MotorQuest.
So really convenient. Clean, functional hotel. It was great. One minor drawback that I would always recommend you think about is that inevitably, even though we'd taken panniers and pannier liners, we did have some luggage that we had to take them over with. And I rather naively had expected the hotel would maybe hang on to the luggage because we were returning there for a further 3 days at the end of the trip, and they refused to do that. Partly through the inconvenience of having to lug luggage around, and partly because of my passion for customer service, I made the decision to change the hotel for when we came back.
Which was a good move.
Which was a very good move, we'll tell you about. Fortunately, MotorQuest came up trumps yet again and stored our luggage for us. So they stored a couple of suitcases for us, so we didn't have to worry about that while we were away.
A couple of days at the Cove, because we like to get the bikes prepped a day before we were due to go, because there's inevitably there's always going to be one or two teething troubles, one of which was Sue decided she was going to take a heated jacket, despite the fact that I said you don't need a heated jacket, it's California, it's going to be mad hot. It turned out to be, had the heated jacket worked, it would have been a godsend. But on the first day we plugged it in to the socket, it blew the fuse, so we had to go back to MotorQuest. They resolved the problem, albeit temporarily. But it's always wise to have a day in advance to prep the bike, fit the GoPros, make sure everything is right before you set off. Our first day was a run to Barstow, which is halfway between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. And I explained on the video, the reason I planned the route so that maximum we'd have about 3.5 hours of riding per day. So we're not the kind of people who do these iron butt rides where you're doing hundreds and hundreds of miles for 6 or 7 hours, because I've got a bad back and a bad neck, so we had to factor that in. So the first stop, Barstow, was, I don't know, 2.5 hours, which was a stopping off point. Initially we were going to ride from Barstow up the interstate straight to Las Vegas. I came across a documentary talking about this incredible place called Amboy, which is on Route 66, which is an iconic place to visit. So we changed our route a couple of days before, and to me it was one of the highlights of the trip, wasn't it? Riding Route 66 with beautiful blue skies, no traffic around, and stumbling across a little place called Amboy, a tiny little enclave, there's only 8 people lived there. It was just fantastic. And then the route took us through the National Mojave Preserve, which was spectacular riding, and then we got to Vegas. We booked 4 nights in Vegas.
Yep.
For a couple of reasons. One, because we wanted also to build in time to do a trip, to tick off one of Sue's key bucket list items, which was to
fly on a helicopter through the Grand Canyon and over the Hoover Dam.
So basically we set aside at least half a day to get that done. But in retrospect, probably 4 nights in Las Vegas was one too many for us, given the fact we didn't gamble at all, not even a cent, and it cost us a fortune spending 4 days in Las Vegas.
I think 3 would have been enough.
3 would have been enough. First major challenge in terms of riding conditions when we went to Kingman.
The whole day was a total washout. It rained from us getting on the bikes to us arriving shaking in Kingman. It was so cold and so damp. In fact, one of the things that I'd done while I'd been in Las Vegas was buy a hoodie, a warm hoodie and a pair of leggings.
Buy more clothes.
Not what you expect when you're in that part of the world, but actually I was really grateful for that, because as Bride mentioned earlier on, whilst I'd had the bike repaired, the fuse on the bike repaired, it did blow again. So it's worth you thinking about that if you actually take heated gloves or heated jackets with you. Apparently it's a fairly frequent event that when they're plugged into the charger that they do blow some of the electrics.
So if you rented a bike, then yeah, you got to be aware. So what we had to do is go back to the old-fashioned method of layering up. And how many layers were you wearing from Las Vegas?
When I got to Kingman, I was wearing 6 layers of clothes.
6 layers, and you were still shaking.
And still cold. It was probably our wettest and coldest day. Fortunately, it was the only day of solid rain, but boy, that was a wet day.
Yeah, it's pretty grim, but you know, it's all part of the adventure. But the day after, so from Kingman, we picked up again more Route 66. To me, the highlight of the whole trip was the bits riding Route 66. Seligman, which is a very historic place on 66 that I've been to before, and I wanted to show Sue where I'd stayed.
And you can't miss it. You can't miss Seligman.
No,
it's
Seligman
fantastic.
is a very important place, and it has a very important part to play in the history of Route 66. And it's also on the way to Sedona, which is where we're heading next. And Sedona is a magical place. It's beautiful. It's red rock country. But the last time I was in Sedona, it was 104 degrees Fahrenheit, that is. This time we got to Sedona, and it was considerably colder than that. We had a couple of days. Oh, the hotel I chose was called Sky Ranch Lodge. When I researched it, it said it was half a mile from the centre of Sedona, which was a complete lie, because it was
at least 2 miles
at least
from
2
the main
miles.
road.
Therefore, we had to get transport there and back again. It was the only downside. Fantastic views from the hotel, but if you want something walkable, then don't choose a Sky Ranch Lodge. Sedona itself is beautiful, but it was cold, and we were living under the forecast of a predicted 8 inches of snow while we were in Sedona. So we had a bit of a fitful night's sleep the last night, expecting to wake up and not be able to get out and get stranded there. But as it turned out, we left early in the morning, and sure enough, the day we left, I think later that afternoon,
4 hours later, they had 9 inches of snow.
9 inches of snow. So not what we were expecting in a place that last time was 104 degrees. Nevertheless, it was a beautiful place, and the roads into and out of Sedona fantastic. So from Sedona, we were now going south and then picking up our route back to Los Angeles. Now, when I planned the trip, I wanted to do the touristy places like Sedona, Las Vegas, Route 66, but to be honest, I had no way of getting back to Long Beach other than taking, a kind of circular route, because we didn't want to repeat the route we'd done. So that opened up towns that I'd never heard of, like Wickenburg, Blythe, Desert Hot Springs. But what we found out is the opposite of the touristy America. We've got a flavour of what we call real America. Like small town America, tiny little places where you get to meet some interesting people and see some interesting things. And I wouldn't have changed that route at all, would you?
No, you eat with real people in the real communities, and it was a real change.
So that took us to Desert Hot Springs, an interesting place. Again, in summer it would have been crazy hot. It was quite chilly, but leaving it, we entered a wind tunnel. And there was a massive wind farm outside of Desert Hot Springs, and you can see why they're trying to harvest the wind, because it was incredibly strong. We were riding for several miles, leaning into it, so as not to get blown across the road. So if you're going to ride that part of California, wasn't it?
Yeah,
be aware of that. If you're going to ride that part of California, be aware that it's incredibly windy all the time. But that route took us back to the coast, to Carlsbad, and from then we were going to head north, following Pacific Coast Highway 1, a beautiful ride, and the weather changed just in time for us to be going on our last day back. And the ride up the coast was superb, wasn't it?
It was lovely.
And then we got back to Long Beach, and again, the weather was, probably the best we'd had on the whole trip.
When we got back to Long Beach, we decided to stay in a different hotel because we were going to be there for 3 days. And we ended up in a hotel that was far more in a touristy area with lots of hotels and bars, and it was right on
down by the marina,
port area, on the marina area.
That's where you need to be in Long Beach.
It is. The Queen Mary's there. There's some beautiful restaurants. Parker's Lighthouse, which was just beautiful.
Highly recommended.
It was great, not to be missed. Particularly, we stayed there because it was February. It got dark quite early, and the Queen Mary was lit up. The restaurant had 360-degree windows, and the views were just fantastic, as was the food. So really worth staying in. Long Beach is lovely, and I'm really glad that we stayed in that part towards the end, because we would have missed that. I think the Cove Hotel was in an area, more residential. We didn't see the great bits, so going back to a more touristy area was really, really lovely.
Staying in the Cove is great if you're going to use MotorQuest to pick up your bikes, but at the end of the trip you need to be where the action is, you know, where the sightseeing is, where the good food and restaurants are, which is down by the marina. So that's it. We did 3 weeks. We did 1,200 miles. We had some epic times. We had some fantastic weather and views on Route 66. We had some terrible weather. We had a mixed bag of all those things. Given the time again, yeah, we probably wouldn't go in February, but we would love to go back and ride more of that part of the world, because it was fantastic. And we want to thank everybody who subscribed to our YouTube channel, and thank those who watched our progress. And thank you so much for all the comments, and we welcome more. We love to hear what you think, and love to hear your ideas. And we would like to inspire people to do a similar trip. We have got some other exciting trips in the pipeline. Before I tell you about the next big one though, there is one other thing that will be useful for you to know. Some people have been interested as to how, if you're going to fly abroad and take all your gear with you, how do you actually do that? How do you take your helmet, your riding gear, your boots, and all the paraphernalia that goes with it, and take all the stuff that you're going to fill 4 panniers with? We'll rather explain it on this video. We're going to put out another video, and Sue's going to talk you through a brilliant idea of how you manage the packing to be able to survive on the road for 3 weeks with just 2 panniers each.
And ladies still look vaguely human, yeah, when you go off a bike.
Yeah. So look out for that. Some top tips coming for packing for, you know, long haul flights and a long trip abroad. But our next big trip coming up is going to be in May, where we're going to do the North Coast 500 in Scotland. Look out for the next videos, and please give us a thumbs up if you like what you see, and drop us a comment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and you know, pass the message around, because we'd love to have you along for the trip. So until next time, this is Midlife Motorcycle Diaries signing out. Stay safe and happy biking.